Welcome back everyone to the second video of my deep dive series, which if you don't know is basically me going over a particular card or a certain set, and we just do a deep dive, we go down the rabbit hole, and we figure out everything there is to figure out about it. In my first episode we did Base Set, which is the first expansion to the Pokemon TCG franchise, and in today's video we're going to be doing the second expansion into the TCG franchise, the Vintage Set Pokemon Jungle. Sorry, that was getting annoying. Anyway, in today's video, we're going to be going over, kind of similar to the base set video, we'll start with the basics, we'll go over probably general knowledge, stuff that you've probably already heard of, and then we'll move into some of the exclusive and additional cards that came with Jungle, which I think they have some pretty good stories. There's only 3 of them, but it'll be kind of interesting going over all 3 of those. And then we have our, probably the biggest portion of the video, which will be the error cards and all the misprints that came out with this set. There's quite a lot of them, so I'm hoping that you'll learn something new with that. And then lastly, we'll sort of dive into like the sealed packs. We'll get into some of the sealed content. There isn't too much information about that. It's pretty generic, kind of similar to the base set. Base set had a lot more just in general, but we will go over that as well. And then I'll leave you with a bit of trivia as well that comes from this set. But yeah, that's going to basically be what all we go over in today's video. If you enjoyed this video and enjoyed this type of content, please let me know down below in the comments section. If you want to see more of this content, and I do a lot of other stuff than just this, I do a lot of openings and a lot of other things, go check out the channel, subscribe. It all means a lot, and I thank you for those who have currently supported me, who continue to support me, and those who potentially watch this video and do the same. So it means a lot. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry this video took so long to take. If you were waiting for it for a while, I know some people were wanting to get into Jungle after I revealed that's what I was going to do for base set. So I apologize for that, but it's here now. The time is nigh. So without further ado, I think we should get into it. As I've mentioned before, any Pokemon set printed in English from 1998 to 2003 was created by Wizards of the Coast. So of course, Jungle falls in that timeline, with the English print being officially released on June 16th, 1999. It's also important to note that in March 5th, 1997, the Japanese print of Jungle was released, and then any other language from the set released in the year 2000. Like in the base set, Jungle is based on the games Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green, consisting of artworks exclusively from Gen 1. The Jungle set in particular is set to take place in the Kanto Safari Zone, which if you don't know is an area in the Pokemon games described as an amusement park where many rare Pokemon can be observed and caught. As a kid, I always saw this as like a mini game basically, so you'd pay your 500 Pokebucks, you'd go in, you've got a 500 step limit, and then they give you 30 Safari Balls, and you just try and catch as many Pokemon as possible. This was the first time in the game where you actually didn't use one of your Pokemon to battle. Instead, you had the option of throwing bait, which made Pokemon less likely to run but was harder to catch, or you could throw a rock at a Pokemon, which made it easier to catch but more likely to run. This often was purely luck of the draw, as the Pokemon you encountered could run away at any time. I remember many frustrating days and nights trying to catch a Scyther and Pinsir. Now, it always seemed that when I tried to go for my first Scyther, he would always immediately run away. Like, I would never get the chance to catch them. They were constantly running away from me, and it always used to piss me off, honestly. But the Safari Zone is extremely important, just in general. This is where you get the HM Surf, and Surf is basically needed in order to progress through the game. You can't beat the game unless you have Surf, pretty much, as far as I know. I mean, you can't progress the game, you can't beat the game if you don't have Surf. So, you know, pretty much everyone has had to go through the Safari Zone if they've ever beaten a Pokemon game before. So, I think that's a pretty big factor as to why the Jungle set is has such, you know, nostalgic ties and nostalgic love to it, just because everyone's seen the Safari Zone before. The Safari Zone is also a very important episode in the anime. It was actually part of the banned list of episodes for the original Pokemon series. This was because the Safari Warden had a gun and pointed it directly at Ash's face, and they also shot at Team Rocket, and Team Rocket threatened him at point blank range with a gun. Yeah, there was basically no way 4Kids were gonna let that slide. But the episode is super important because Ash catches 30 Tauros in this episode and ends up using one of the 30 Tauros to help him win the Orange Island League, and I think other leagues as well later on. But if you didn't see the banned episode, the anime itself is quite confusing in terms of the timeline and how it all worked out, because Ash refers to the Tauros he captured in the Safari Zone all the time. They even go back to Professor Oak's at one point throughout the show, I think it's later on, and you just see all 30 Tauros in the field just like stampeding. And he's like, oh yeah, caught those in the Safari Zone. All 30 of them, caught them in the Safari Zone. And then obviously, like, towards the end of the Orange League, when he's actually battling, I think he's battling the Dragonite, he's battling Drake. And before that battle, he goes to Oak and exchanges one of his Tauroses out. And basically, without the Tauros, he wouldn't have won. So it's super important, and it's banned, but you can kind of see why it wasn't really the most appropriate episode when it came to the use of guns. Personally, I love the jungle set so much, mainly because all of these Safari Zone exclusives ended up in the set and were the holos for the set, which, speaking of, in the English printing of Jungle, there are 16 holo rares, 16 non-holo rares, 16 uncommons, and 16 commons, totaling 64 cards in total. The Japanese print only contained 48 cards, as they did not include the non-holo rares. Wizards of the Coast have pretty much always gotten stick for adding the non-holos into the set. They did this to make the expansion bigger, but what they actually ended up doing is making it really hard to get, you know, holo rares. So basically, holo rares no longer were guaranteed in every pack. So whether they meant to do that on purpose, pretty much a lot of people over the years have sort of disregarded even collecting the non-holos, because basically it's just a lesser version of the actual holo. And of course, the Japanese, they never did that in the Japanese sets. They just kept it with the holos and then went into the uncommons and commons. So that's why in my collections, if you see my collection video, when I present my sort of binders, I have it where it's like the holo, I do the first edition, the unlimited, and then I'll do the Japanese holo. I always have a gap when I get to the non-holos because there were no Japanese non-holo rares. So that's something that, you know, I think everyone over time has never really liked Wizards of the Coast for doing that, but ultimately it was to make that set a lot bigger. Now, speaking of different versions and prints, let's go ahead and talk about what consists in the Jungle set. Before we get into like the misprints and sort of the error cards, let's just go over some of the basics first. I'm not going to bore you with all of the uncommons and commons and trainers. You can look that up later on your own. It's not that big of a deal, there's not too many of them, but let's go ahead and go over the important ones, which are the holos, and those are Clefable, Electrode, Flareon, Jolteon, Kangaskhan, Mr. Mime, Nidoqueen, Pidgeot, Pinsir, Scyther, Snorlax, Vaporeon, Venomoth, Victreebel, Vileplume, and lastly, Wigglytuff. Similar to the base set, as you can tell in English, the cards are sorted in alphabetical order, and this was the first set that introduced the original evolutions, Flareon, Jolteon, and of course, Vaporeon. So to us boomers, this is the evolving skies of the 90s. It's also important to note that the base set only covered about a third of the original Kanto series Pokédex. So of course, a lot of the cards that you see in the Jungle set, it's the first time they were ever printed. In terms of like sports, it's like their rookie cards. That's the best way to explain it. You know, it's the first time you've ever seen this card printed, and of course, you know, the games, the anime, everything's always been about catch 'em all, right? The whole premise of Pokemon is usually to complete your Pokédex and catch all of them. So it was only a matter of time, and honestly, they needed to do it to where they managed to get every single Pokemon in the Pokédex available for you to actually collect. Now let's move on to what will be probably the biggest portion of this video. We're going to go over all the misprints, the errors, and additional cards. We'll start with the additional cards, then we'll move into some of the misprints and the error cards that came out with the Jungle set. Officially, there were only 4 Wizards of the Coast pre-release cards. The Jungle set had the first being a Clefable holo, having a pre-release stamp on the bottom right of the artwork. Now, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the base set video, but yes, before you get your pitchforks out and come at me like I'm Shrek, there was allegedly a pre-release base set Raichu card. Now, the story goes with the Raichu is that during a test run of the Clefable pre-release cards, several base set Raichus were added to the printing sheet, giving them the same pre-release stamp as Clefable. Later, that error was corrected, and the Raichu cards were handed out to Wizards employees. Although this is pretty common knowledge in the Pokemon community, and especially in the vintage scene, Wizards of the Coast still to this day deny that that card ever existed, and of course, it kind of makes sense. If it was an error, they probably don't ever want that to be considered like an official release for them. Next up, we have the Gold Border Meowth promo. Do you remember fruit by the foot back in the day? Or maybe you still eat them now as an adult? Now, if you remember, if you were a cool kid, there's only one way you can eat these things, right? There's only one way. And I'm going to look at the camera, and I'm going to eat it the only way that you're supposed to eat it. We'll see how this comes out on the recording, but, you know, there's only one way. There's only one way, boys and girls. in one. I haven't done this for so long. Get in. No! No! You saw nothing. And just like that. Ah. Beautiful red dye and sugar. That's what we like to see. God bless America. Back in 1999, General Mills licensed a version of Fruit by the Foot going by the name of Pokémon Rolls. Pokémon Rolls only had the punch red flavor and were sold in packs of 6. In each box you could get one of the 4 base set cards, the 3 starters and Pikachu, or this special Meowth promo. As far as I've been able to see, the Meowth was just loose in the box, so I imagine the card is quite hard to grade. After looking at the pop count, there are only 64 PSA 10s of this card, and a PSA 10 last sold for $466. The third most famous promo card to be released with the Jungle set was the Duelist Magazine W Promo Pikachu. These W promotional cards were basically reprints of a specific card from a set with a gold foil W stamped on it. This W represents the original Wizards of the Coast logo. There wasn't that many of these W stamped cards, 7 to be exact. The only W promo I currently own is the Dark Arbok, which was from the Hong Kong Pokemon League back in 2001. But a majority of these promo cards appeared in magazines, and the only one we're going to go into detail today is the first W gold stamped promo card, and that of course is the Pikachu. This card was released with the 1999 Duelist Magazine September edition. It was volume 6, issue 9, and sported a beautiful front page magazine artwork showing the original evolutions. The back of the magazine is where the promo card could be found, along with what looks to be an ad for Star Wars Episode 1 and a big old Darth Maul in the background. The Pikachu itself is nothing too special. It's a first edition Jungle set reprint with the gold foil W stamp just below the card artwork directly under the Jungle set logo. Another fun fact about this particular Pikachu is that it was featured in one other language, and that language is Italian. Surprisingly, the Italian version appeared as a promo card in the back of a Mickey Mouse magazine. The magazine was titled Topolino, sorry if I mispronounced that, which is apparently Mickey Mouse in Italian and was number 2344. Based on the picture and what I could find online, the magazine was released October 31st of 2000. While we're on the topic of Pikachu, let's get into the third exclusive card that came with the Jungle set, and that is of course the Ivy Pikachu. I did mention the Ivy Pikachu in my base set video, so I won't go into too much detail, but in short, it was the rare promo card that was in the Japanese Koro print together there with Jigglypuff. These cards were the first ever Pokemon cards printed. They were available 5 days before the release of base set on October 20th, 1996. The English printing of this card was coined the name Ivy Pikachu because of the background design. Now the reason why I'm mentioning Ivy Pikachu at all in this video is because a very few amount of the first edition Pikachu promo cards actually ended up in the Jungle set. Now for years this was basically treated as an error card, a one-off situation. You were very lucky to even find these, depending on your definition of an error card, it still technically is, but with the evidence we have now, it suggests that this release was actually intentional. A well-renowned person in the Pokemon community, TCA Gaming, or Rusty, posted an amazing video 10 years ago now that showed what mock or prototype packs look like. He shows a Neo Destiny mock pack, and more importantly for this deep dive, a Jungle mock pack. This mock pack has a Jolteon as a pack artwork. Now, to be honest, this was kind of incredible to see. If you haven't watched that video, I will post it down below. I'll leave a link because you definitely need to check it out. It's 10 years old now, and it's really fascinating seeing that these things even existed and finding these out. You know, I mean, this was 10 years ago when the video was released, but that was still like 15 years, 16 years after the set was actually released. So I just find it really interesting and fascinating that these things exist and then people find them and then share them with the community. You know, I love that. I mean, that's why I make these type of videos. I wouldn't be able to make these videos if we didn't have that information available. So big shout out to Rusty and being able to show that off. And of course, he's very well known. He's very informative when it comes to these type of things. But I just found the artwork itself, the pack artwork with the Jolteon, so cool. And honestly, I wish that they went with that. I just think the Jolteon artwork would be a little cooler than some of the other ones that they instead of Wigglytuff. Come on, let's get Jolteon in there. But the reason why this mock deck is so important when it comes to Ivy Ivy Pikachu is because that on the Pokeball next to Jolteon, it reads, "Capture the rare Pikachu card, look inside the wrapper." Now, this suggests that not only were Wizards of the Coast originally planning to use Jolteon as one of the pack artworks, but they were also originally intending Ivy Pikachu to be the first secret rare card that they released for their Pokemon franchise. Now, I'm sure in future deep dives I will bring secret rares back up again. WOTC did this a lot with a lot of the vintage sets, but just to give you like a bare bones textbook definition of what a secret rare is, basically a secret rare is a card that is randomly inserted into a box or into a set, and the collection number, basically the collection number on the bottom right, exceeds that of the set list number. So a good example of that is officially the first ever secret rare card that was released was actually in the Team Rocket set, and that was Dark Raichu, which is a favorite card of mine, might I add. This card was numbered 83 out of 82, and I believe it actually had the hardest pull rate in the WOTC era, being that there was only a 1 in every 1.5 box chance, I believe, or basically a 1 in every 57 packs pull rate. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Jimbo, just because the mock pack said capture the rare Pikachu on it doesn't necessarily mean that that was a thing, because we know that they never used the Jolteon packs, and the regular jungle packs never had that Pokeball that said capture the rare Pikachu. And to that I would say fair enough, Sergeant Nicholas Arswipe. However, the other piece of evidence that suggests the release was intentional was when a person who goes by the username of Merked opened 3 jungle packs on stream, which each contained 3 first edition Ivy Pikachu cards. After doing the pack trick, all 3 of his uncommons in the packs were replaced with the first edition Ivy Pikachu. Now, the most popular theory I've heard when it comes to the Ivy Pikachu really has to do with the release date of Jungle. Now, it has been proven now that Jungle actually released a month in advance, so obviously they were planning on using those mock packs, right? They were planning on using the Jolteon, they were planning on inserting the Pikachu and everything else, but for whatever reason, basically because of demand, I think, the actual set list or the actual set was pushed a month in advance, so they had to scrap all those things. They had to scrap the mock packs, they had to scrap the Ivy Pikachu, so basically they were left with what we now know to be Jungle, with just the pack designs and artworks that we currently know. In addition to this, as far as we know, there are no confirmed uncut Jungle sheets, so you'll see those uncut sheets all over the place, right? But none of those sheets actually have an Ivy Pikachu in it, so that sort of suggests that, it was obviously intended originally, but then it, because of the release date, it sort of scrapped that idea. Although this theory makes the most sense to me, it is just that, a theory. What do you think happened with Ivy Pikachu's involvement in the Jungle set? Let me know what your thoughts are down below. So those were the 3 additional cards added to Jungle that actually had quite the backstories to them. Let's move on now to what I consider to be the coolest error cards that came with the Jungle set. So I think the best way to go ahead and go over all the error cards and misprints that came out with the Jungle set is to go ahead and go over this master misprint guide on Elite Forums here by Josh's Odd Collection. This thread here is it's just amazing. I've looked through it a little bit. I've not seen towards the end some of the stuff, so I'm actually curious to see it while I record this, but some really cool stuff here. Collaboration between Misprint Jeff and Josh's Odd Collection, so big shout out to them. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Clefable. So Clefable, I think these are all in alphabetical order or in numerical order. So we start with Clefable. These had some pre-release stamp errors, inverted or misaligned stamps. So as you can see here, the pre-release print here is completely inverted. I kind of like this one. It's just on the actual metronome attack. This one, it's sort of just above the weight. What do we got here? This one's a bit off the weight as well, so very similar to that one. And then, yeah, so that seems to be a pretty common error. And then this one, it's quite hard to see. I'll just see if I can just zoom in on this. But it looks like a double stamp. Kind of reminds me of like a double die coin or something. It's like almost been double stamped, that pre-release symbol. So that's quite interesting. And you can definitely see the green on that pre-release there. Very cool looking error card. And then we go to Flareon. So Flareon has the Holo Hickey Flareon. So this is just a magenta print error by the looks of it here. Kind of a little harder to spot on the sort of the non-zoomed in version. You can just kind of see it right there, but that's sort of what it looks like on the back of the light. Pretty cool. I have actually seen a couple of those in person before. Kangaskhan has a partial non-holo Kangaskhan, additional white ink, unlimited holo. Okay, so this is this reminds me of the Zapdos in the fossil set, how it had sort of on the top left, it had a non-holo within the foil, and this is very similar, but it's very shoddy here on the bottom here. Very interesting. There's definitely a pretty significant error. And then it said additional white ink. Okay, so I think some of these have more ink than the other. Yeah, so this one, this is probably what it's normally supposed to look like with this here. And then this is when it has sort of additional white ink. So there's more non-foil in the actual error. Yeah, so these seem to be, this is what it should look like. Then you have different variants that sometimes have this as well. Very cool. That's actually quite interesting. I've never seen one of them in person before. This one's pretty common. The pincer, scratch error pincer, white layer obstruction, first edition holo. So I actually really like this. I would definitely get this if I can find it. But you can see on the top of the first edition, there's like a scratch mark. And this is a good zoomed in here, but I think this is great for for a pincer card, for a stag beetle card. It would be even better if it was on a scyther as well, but I think that's a pretty cool holo, pretty cool error, and I have seen that a couple times before. The partial non-holo Snorlax, additional white stain, so similar to the Kangaskhan, again, we have a Snorlax with the same error, so just non-holo in the foil. And this one has the same thing with additional white stain. So I think here on the bottom, that looks to be a bit more than normal. Just seeing if I can tell the difference. Yeah. Yeah, so again, it just seems like there's different variants of this, but it's definitely a non-holo background within the foil background. Then we have the Vaporeon Green Border Stain Vaporeon. This is kind of interesting. Additional gold ink, unlimited only on the unlimited foil. Okay, so you can see here on like this left hand side, I really like it actually, because it's sort of, it looks kind of like algae almost, like, it's very like, this green border, it kind of blends in quite well with Vaporeon being the mermaid like water Pokemon. So it looks like, because it says additional gold ink, so that's the stain, right? Additional ink. Okay. Yeah, so that's the gold, and then this is more the green. That's a good picture there. So it can be on, basically anywhere on the edges that error can exist, this green stain border. On here it's very significant on the left-hand side, and on here it's on a bit on the right. And then you can see it here pretty significant on the left, but yeah, this definitely looks like it's gold, right? Like bleeding in from the actual border. So that's interesting. Moving on, Clefable. So this is on the non-holo Clefable, a pink orb Clefairy, cyan ink obstruction, unlimited non-holo. Now that's very obvious, right? Because it's a non-holo, so it shouldn't have a foil, and basically it has like a little a foil dot on it. It's a cyan inking obstruction, but it's probably like a misprint from the actual holo version of Clefable. That's pretty cool, though. That's actually quite significant. And then the unlimited non-foil for 21 Kangaskhan. Yeah, yellow highlighter. That's pretty cool. Magenta layer obstruction. So you just basically just stripes going through the face of Kangaskhan there. And then it looks like on the top of the head. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you can definitely, that's a pretty obvious error there. You kind of get a good idea of what the background's supposed to be. It's kind of hard to tell in person what it's supposed to look like. That's cool, though. I like that. And then we've got another yellow highlighter, Snorlax. Okay, magenta layer obstruction. Oh, so it's actually through the text on this one, through the sleeping Pokemon into power. That's very cool. So it doesn't actually obstruct necessarily the artwork, just on the bottom left corner. But I've never seen one of those before. That's pretty cool. This is the most common one, the D edition Butterfree, black printer Hickey first edition. So on a lot of the first edition Butterfrees, it just looks like a D. They just misprinted the one in the first edition there. Pretty well known. So we don't have to go over too much, but pretty cool, right? They call it the D edition. And then we've got Executor 35 Egg Hickey Executor. Okay. So this is just on the top, it just another Hickey. Nothing too crazy there, but still pretty cool. Persian 42, apple tree Persian, magenta printer Hickey. Okay, so there's a lot of Hickey errors, but that actually does look very cool just with the artwork because it does look like an apple. That is pretty cool. I like that. Okay. Weeping Bell next. Yellow Ring Weeping Bell, Cyan Printer Hickey, another Hickey. Oh, but that's pretty significant. That's right there in between resistance and the weakness, right under the Razor Leaf. Pretty obvious there. Bellsprout had one too, the Blue Hickey Bellsprout. Oh, on the background. Oh, that looks cool. Oh, that looks very cool. I like that. See, that's just cool to have on like a common, right? Because it would be so obvious. But I've never seen one of those before. Let's there you go. You know, I mean, you get the lines in here. It's very zoomed in, very cool. Wow, they really messed that one up. Nice. Okay, I like that. Actually, that's up there for me. Then you got a D edition Eevee by the looks of it as well. So Eevee, oh, it's not as obvious. Definitely not as obvious as the Butterfree, but let's look at this one. I mean, is that really a D? That one looks a bit better. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a stretch. It's obviously an error, but it's nowhere near as obvious as the other one. This is probably the closest thing to the Butterfree. Still cool though. Little first edition error on the Eevee. Green Dot Execute. So another Hickey here. Pretty significant on the top of Execute. Next to the 50. Very nice and detailed there. Leaky oh, this is cool. Additional magenta. Oh, that is awesome. So it's like an actual, it's almost like the yolk coming out of the egg, like sort of dripping down onto the head there of the other one. Let's look at this. So this is how it's normally supposed to look. And yeah, that's actually a really cool error. I would definitely get that if I could find one. Oh, another one. Gold stained error. Okay. These used to be pretty popular. I know there was a lot of these in Fossil as well. But there's definitely different variants by the looks of it, but it's all the same on this left-hand side. Some are more significant than the others, but okay. Additional gold ink. Blue Branch Jigglypuff. Missing yellow ink. Obstruction Unlimited. Okay, so we've got the Blue Branch there. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you can definitely see how they missed that with the zoomed-in version here. Oh, Paleface Meowth. Missing ink, yellow ink. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Pretty much half of the artwork is just all, it has no color. That's cool. Okay, I've not seen that one before. Weight Hickey Oddish. Okay, another Hickey. It just looks like almost like a circle on the weight, but yeah, the actual letters in weight have been replaced by a Hickey. Interesting. Black Obstruction Paris. Black Layer Obstruction Unlimited. Oh, wow. Wait, that's... Yeah, that's pretty significant, actually. All these, I'm just like, I just like forgot that the artwork looked like this. I thought the artwork was an error. It seems like it. You can see the background going on here. You can really tell from the logo. It's sort of blacking out on the logo. Oh, on the 20 as well. I'm blind. Oh, and on the Pokemon. Okay, yeah, I'm blind. Yeah. Oh, it's all over the place. Okay. I see. Took me a second there. That will be heavily edited so I don't look stupid. Red Chopsticks Pikachu. Oh. Now that's pretty cool. Red Chopsticks is an interesting name. Just looks like it almost looks like a it just looks like thread, but it looks like a little pincher. That's what I can't think of what the name is, but a little pincher. Yeah, that's it. That you'd pluck eyelashes or some shit. I don't know. Pretty cool. Red Chopsticks Pikachu. Okay. I've seen that one before. Venonat, Blackline. Okay, this one's a pretty common one. First edition on the ink. I have seen and heard of this one before. So this is just the black line here on this left-hand side. A bit more obvious there. And definitely a bit not as obvious there, but it does exist. So it looks like you have you have three sort of different. So you've got like a full line, and then like a half line, and then like probably like a quarter of a line there. So you can have sort of three different types, or probably a bit more than that. But that's pretty cool. That one is a pretty... That, I think the Venonat and the D Butterfree are like the two most popular, well-known errors that aren't like related to like the Holos. So moving on, so we've got special set misprints, holo shifts. Now this is pretty interesting. Misaligned white layer, unlimited holo. So they've got quite a lot of these. Now these look dope. I mean, I see these a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh as well. These are pretty, they're very rare to find, but they do look very cool when you do find them. Wow, that one's incredible. Like you've got the outline of the Vaporeon. And that one's just a shift there on the top. That's insane. It almost looks like he's doing double team. That's crazy. Kangaskhan, a very big shift there. Clefairy shift. Not as significant of a shift, but still. Yeah, these are just the misaligned errors. You're not going to find these as much as you'd think, but they're very cool. See, some are so much more significant than the others. But there's pretty much one of every holo. That's a pretty cool one. I like that. Again, like a double team aspect. Just another shift there. That one's very obvious. Wow. You can even see it on the top here with the actual stage that's been sort of highlighted out. But that's cool with the Vileplume. Because I otherwise don't really like that card. But that would be a cool error to get. Yeah. Okay. Another shift, another there. Screen holos, let's go move on here. Screen holos, additional gold ink, unlimited holos. Oh, these are cool. Okay, because this makes it look like almost CCTV. You know, it's like they almost look pixelated, almost, right? Like they've got these streaks, basically just extra. They've got extra ink in them. That Vaporeon looks really cool. But you can see like there's extra lines because they've almost like double printed, but it's just additional gold ink. Yeah, that one's pretty significant too. It does look like it just looks like an old TV, like almost static. Oh, those are pretty hard to see though, I think. Like you got to really look quite hard in person, but that's a very cool error. Some are more significant than the others, but you can definitely tell in the holo bleed that it exists. Very nice. Double star holos, double stamped holo pattern, first edition and unlimited. Double stamped holo patterns, okay. Oh, that's sick. Okay. So you can kind of see that they've basically the holos stamped twice because there's way too many. Yeah, that one's very obvious. That one makes it that's kind of trippy, to be honest. What does the back look like? Why does it keep showing me the back? I can't really tell any difference. Maybe it's just showing you the back of these cards just to show you if there is any difference that you can see what the back looks like. But yeah, these are pretty cool. Like we say, double star holos, so just you can see 2-2 there, but like even right there, 2-2 there shouldn't be 2 there. This one's pretty obvious. You've just got like duplicates. So basically they've printed the holo there and then they've printed the holo there and sort of split it in half and put it on 2. This one's wild. There's 2 of everything. 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. Like that Vaporeon's obviously the best. Red line errors, additional magenta ink, first edition and non-holo rares. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, it almost looks like a pen. Like, that's crazy. Okay, that one's a bit more round. That one's not as obvious, but it still comes through. Wait, what are these electrodes? So that is just... Okay, so some of them are lighter. Some of them actually have, like, sort of the ink blob on the end of it. That one's sick. Okay. But, like, those are the ones where I'm just like, well, it is a perfect line, but those are the ones I'm like, yeah, I feel like somebody could just draw that, you know? But no, they're pretty significant because they are, like, right on line. And they have different ink. Like, that's where the ink dot would have normally gone, yeah. So those are pretty cool errors. I like that. That one doesn't have, like, an actual blob on it. That one is very faded, but it still is there. Same with this one, too. And that one has the little blob there, too. Very cool. Okay. Pink stain backs. Additional magenta ink. First edition non-holos. Wow, yeah, that's a pretty obvious difference. Reason why you should always check the back of your cards, because on the front, it doesn't look really that... Yeah, there looks really no difference on the front, but the back is where all the action's at. Very cool. That could be a pretty significant price. I don't know what the price difference of those would be, but probably pretty significant. And then black stained commons, Rhyhorn, Jigglypuff, Pikachu, Execute, additional black ink stain, unlimited commons. Okay, that's pretty cool. It looks really cool in the text, honestly. There, that shows it's not deliberate. You know, that shows it's an accident, because you could easily quite recreate this, but on the text, that's very hard to just smudge. Doubled on the jungle symbol, on the energy, on the, like, just basically the right-hand side of this card. Lullaby, balloon. So it's like, it's either the left side or the right side by the looks of it. What's execute? Yeah, on the left here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Just some more close-ups. Yeah, very significant on the name. That's pretty cool. I've never seen those before. Inverted backs, okay. Now I know what the back looks like. Jesus, that's OC. That is insane, but it makes sense. Wow. Like, you're telling me that's... Wait, is this the same? 002. Can't tell. I'm just looking at this code. 398. I just want to see if... 398. Okay, so this is the back of this. Wow, that's... It looks so much worse on the back. That's crazy. I have seen inverted backs before, though. Those aren't... That's not, like, anything too crazily new. I have seen those before, but they do look sick, and some of them are crazy off-centered. Oh, miscut, sorry. No symbol errors. Okay, this is the most obvious one. I was hoping that they added this to the list, because otherwise I was going to talk about it separately, but this is the one that I collect and the one that you're going to find most common. The no symbol errors, so every holo in the set has a jungle symbol missing, so that's why they're called the no symbol errors. And yeah, so that's pretty cool there. I nearly have all of those, so that's exciting. I think I've got like 5 or 6 more to go. Some of them will be quite expensive, but honorable mentions: red tape, obstruction, Snorlax, and Pinsir. Retained obstruction errors, unlimited holos. So last but not least, we have red tape. Red tape obstruction. So there was a piece of tape on it when it got printed by the looks of it. That's very interesting. I've never seen those before. Huh. Cool. Well, that is the list of the Jungle Set Misprint Guide. I hope you enjoyed that little part. Let's move on to the next part of the video. Another type of jungle print that is extremely rare is the Japanese-style Cosmos Holo test prints. Now, you're probably familiar with Cosmos Holos in general, right? They did exist a little bit back in the day, but they were pretty rare. But nowadays, every promo card you see in, like, those 3-pack blisters with the modern-day cards, they're all Cosmos Holo, right? So they're pretty cool style, and usually that was the Japanese style in a lot of the old artworks as well. So that has always been like that's a pretty big debate throughout the years. That's why I collect both the Japanese and the English. I do love that Cosmos Holo swirls that you can get with the Japanese versions compared to the English, and that's just kind of always been a thing. But there wasn't too much of a story behind this style of print, you know, in general. I'll go over what the person says and how they, you know, got them and everything, but what is known for sure is that very few of these exist. These particular cards came from a pre-constructed theme deck sheet that had 110 cards in total. The user Jaws, who revealed these Cosmos Holo Jungle cards in an elite forum thread, said that the local shop he bought them from claimed they got them from a Wizards employee. The local shop was in the area of where Wizards of the Coast was headquartered, which I believe is in Seattle. So with this, Jaws theorizes that given the cuts on the Cosmos Holo cards were done by hand, it would suggest it was done back in the day by someone who believed these cards either wouldn't be released or, you know, definitely weren't going to be as expensive as they currently are. giving reason to believe that these cards were actually intended for the theme decks, Water Blast and Power Reserve, as the only two cards we've seen so far have been Vaporeon and Kangaskhan. Speaking of theme decks, let's go ahead and move on now to the sealed products that exist with the Jungle set. Starting with the basics, the 3 pack artworks in English were the Wigglytuff pack, Scyther pack, and Flareon pack. The Japanese version only had 1 artwork, which in my opinion does look the best. Now, in my previous deep dives, I broke down the different types of pack variants there is when it comes to the base set packs, including things like long packs, short packs, and even hanger packs. Almost all of these same variants apply to the Jungle set as well. They did also have blister packs, theme decks, and booster boxes too. I won't go into too much detail with defining the actual pack types again, just for the sake of repeating myself, but I will go over some of the different pack variants that existed with the Jungle set. This should be pretty helpful. I mean, if you've got a lot of these in your sealed collection, you may want to look back through them, because it can potentially change the value of what you have, just based on knowing the different types of packs that existed within the Jungle set. So as far as I've been able to research, there's only 5 different variants when it comes to the Jungle packs, right? Yeah, technically 6 if you want to count the first edition packs, but I don't really count those. They're pretty easy to spot. They've just got a first edition stamp on them. So we're going to disregard that, and I'm just going to stick with the 5 that I have been able to find. Also, as far as I know, Jungle packs were only printed in the USA, Australia, and Belgium. So unlike the base set, there were no UK prints, there were no UK packs. When we go through each pack variant here, there are several distinct characteristics we will focus on in order to be able to spot the difference between the packs. These characteristics are font, both the size and color, copyright date, similar to the base set with the UK prints, basically the 1999 to 2000 thing, right? The manufacture origin, where the pack was made, the difference in seals, the trading card game logo, and lastly, the Wizards of the Coast logo on the back of the pack. So to make this easier, I found an old picture on Instagram by SMS23_cards. This picture has the fonts of 4 of the 5 different variants, so I'll go ahead and show that picture and we can go through all the differences, at least from the front. So starting with the top left, this is the 1999 to 2000 copyright variant that is made in the USA. Generally on the front here, the only 2 noticeable differences are with the 11 additional game cards font and the trading card game logo. The font for both the logo and the text are definitely significantly bolder than they normally should be, and then on the back of this pack you'll find the copyright dates 1999 to 2000, and then made in the USA for the manufacturer, and then of course lastly the Wizards of the Coast logo will be curved instead of rectangular. Next, we have the most obvious pack variant in the top right, being the Australian print. Unless you're colorblind, you can see that the Pokémon symbol is in red text instead of yellow. A very cool error, might I add. You can also see the difference in the logo and the 11 additional game cards text. They are obviously not bold. Next, in the bottom left, we have the 1999 to 2000 Belgium pack. Now, it's actually been rumored that in Belgium, they started with the long sealing first, so you can see the pack sealing is much longer than the others in the picture. Similar to the Australian pack, the fonts are not bold, and on the back of these packs, you have the Made in Belgium stamp, basically like the statement for its origin, and the 1999 to 2000 copyright date, and then also the Wizards of the Coast logo is again curved. Now, based on other evidence that I've actually managed to find, the bottom right pack in this picture is actually mislabeled. I don't think it is. He's got it labeled as like an unlimited basic pack, so this is like what you'd find in the store type of thing. The other evidence that I've managed to see suggests otherwise. Now, you know, it is a bad picture, like in terms of, it's not a bad picture, but it's just an old picture and it doesn't really show super detail on each individual pack. We also only see the front, so it's not like the best picture to judge whether it's mislabeled or not. However, to explain the last 2 variants and why I think that pack isn't a regular unlimited pack, let's move to a different picture that shows the difference between a no symbol error pack and a regular unlimited pack. Now, this evidence is based on a sample size of a 6-box case worth of packs, so it's pretty solid evidence, but I wouldn't say that it's absolutely guaranteed. But let's just assume that this is correct, just for the sake of explaining the differences. From the front here, we can definitely see that the colors are different. The no symbol pack definitely feels a bit more saturated than the unlimited pack. The font also appears much bolder on the no symbol pack, and the seal of the unlimited pack has noticeably longer and definitely more structured ripples in the actual, like on the top of the actual seal itself. Moving to the back of the pack, the barcode is stretched a bit longer on the Unlimited pack versus the no symbol, and the red, the black, and the green body of text that appears on the bottom of the pack is definitely much bolder on the no symbol pack. It's kind of hard to see from here, but if you zoom in, you can definitely see that it is significantly bolder. And then lastly, the Wizards of the Coast logo appears as a completely different color. One's more like highly saturated and it looks like more lighter blue, and then purple. The Unlimited pack definitely looks a bit more purple. So as far as I know, that's everything. Those are all the differences in the various pack styles of the Jungle set. Earlier, I briefly mentioned that Jungle had the theme decks, right? And I actually mentioned this also in the end of my base set video. There was the starter gift set top box, right? And that also had a Jungle theme deck in it. However, compared to the base set, Jungle only had 2 theme decks in total, the first being Water Blast and the second Power Reserve. Starting with Water Blast, this theme deck focused on water and fighting type Pokemon, sporting a Vaporeon and Meowth on the blue front cover. Each Jungle theme deck is packaged with 60 card decks, damage counters, a Vileplume coin, a rulebook, and lastly a card list. The main Pokemon built around Water Blast was of course the evolution Vaporeon. Now, the other theme deck, Power Reserved, focused mainly on Psychic and Grass-type Pokemon, sporting a Kangaskhan and Bellsprout on the grassy jungle front cover. The holo in this deck was, of course, Kangaskhan. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned the Japanese Cosmofoil style cards and that, that we only saw a Vaporeon and a Kangaskhan, so maybe they were meant for the theme decks? That's actually, funny enough, not the only sort of weird error that came with the theme decks. While researching the video, I found out about these prototype Jungle theme decks. They basically remind me a lot of like the base set small trainer deck boxes, but the difference of course being that they have the Jungle theme deck names on the front cover. Now, it's been confirmed by someone who opened these prototype decks, and I think I saw the post on eBay, that the cards inside are unfortunately no different to the normal theme decks. However, the user who brought up these prototypes in a thread mentioned they reached out to a former Wizards of the Coast employee who had worked there during the Pokemon heyday and suggested they may have been demo decks used during the 1999 Mall Tour. And that's actually all I could find out about these super cool like prototype theme decks, so if you have any more information about that, please let me know down below, because I just think these things are so cool. Now, before we end the video, I figured let's go ahead and end it with a nice little trivia question, and of course the trivia that I'm referring to in this particular set is the Japanese booster box artwork. The artwork shows an Executor with a super long neck. This greatly resembles the Alolan Executor. So this suggests back in 1997, they were already planning on releasing Alolan Pokemon in the future. Which, to be fair, isn't like Simpsons level of prediction. I mean, throughout the whole anime, we've seen, different Pokemon, sort of change based on their environment. Like, I remember in particular, like, the Pink Rhydon or the Pink Rhyhorn episode, right, where they're eating a bunch of pink berries, and then they actually change the whole structure. They almost look shiny, but they're not. They just become pink based on what they're eating. And other Pokemon that sort of, evolve based on their environment. And so Alolan is no different to that, I don't think, right? I mean, that's basically just, it's a palm tree because it lives there type of deal. And so it doesn't seem like an out of the realm of possibility that Pokemon were going to take that direction. But regardless, it's a pretty cool fun fact that, they pretty much had an Alolan Executor back in 1997. And that is going to do it for today's video, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for sticking around this long, and I hope you enjoyed the deep dive that we did today. I actually was planning on making this a Jungle and Fossil put together. Like, I really went into this video thinking I knew everything about Jungle, and I was humbled quite quickly when I did some research here. So there was a lot more than I thought, and there was actually enough to make a full video. I can't promise that in the next deep dive, when I can promise, we're not going to do a Pokemon related theme for the next deep dive. I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, but it's not going to be Pokemon, and it's not going to be about a set. It will be about a specific card. Yeah, you can probably go back through my older videos and figure out maybe what I'm hinting at, what I'm going to drop, and what I'm going to talk about. But it's one that I've been sitting on for a couple years now. Some of my friends know which one I'm talking about, and they'll probably get a bit excited. But it is pretty cool, and I just wanted to start with these two series just because I do enjoy base set and I enjoy Jungle as well, and they're quite fascinating. There's a lot of different things that I I didn't really know, and I like to learn, especially if I collect a lot of vintage Pokemon. I kind of want to learn everything about it. So I hope you enjoyed, like I say today, and I hope you learned a little bit of something new, like I definitely did. There was a couple things here and there, like I know the Japanese Cosmos Holo one, that was like in May, right? Like that was May of this year. So it's still, again, I reiterate it a lot, but it's still so fascinating to me that even in 2024, going into 2025, we can still find brand new things about cards and sets that released, you know, nearly 30 years ago. You know, it's kind of cool stuff, and I want to continue this deep dive series that goes into that type of stuff. So like I said, again, I'll reiterate, if you do enjoy this type of content, then let me know down below. Leave a like, share it to your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I also, like I say, do openings. I have several big openings planned, hopefully, I mean, obviously for Christmas, but just a bit before Christmas, I do plan to open some more One Piece again. That video has done really well for a channel of my size, so much appreciated. I don't know if any of the One Piece fans are even going to watch this, because it's not related to One Piece, but if you are, then I do plan to open up some One Piece here soon. Otherwise, that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.